Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 146 of the Civil Gore podcast. This is your host, Tim, and if I sound a little more dulcety on your morning drive this week, it's because I'm speaking to you from a brand new, used microphone.
Yes, and this is Brian, and that is, Tim, this is going to be a one of our raw episodes there where we don't edit. Yeah, already I could tell this one's going to be a doozy. We're recording late, much later in the week, and it's going to be a quick turnaround time just due to some scheduling and some I guess just like, I mean, it's all been good problems. It's like just we've gotten a lot of cool stuff, and so we've kind of switching our normal schedules around all over the place. So this should be fun though, because I think it's going to be a this will be a quicker episode probably. Well, no, actually, I take that back. Because we do have part 2 of our Laura Marie Taylor interview. It's like the part we're recording is going to be shorter, I guess.
Yes.
Better way to say it.
Yeah, so, kind of a crazy episode. As you know, my Blue Yeti microphone got busted in the move, so I found my Blue Snowball, which is a slight step down, but it's not bad. It's actually pretty good. It's probably what I'll be using for a while now until I can afford to replace the Yeti. So that's what you're hearing, but it's a far cry better from the Logitech thing I was using last week.
Yeah, it's better also that you found your blue snowball and not a yellow snowball, because, those are not good.
Those are bad.
Yeah.
So, as Brian was saying, we have our second part of the Laura Marie Taylor interview, and we got a bonus. We're going to have a third part of her interview, which is more of it's a very off the cuff. We were kind of just chatting, but we happen to have it recording at the same time, just in case we got some cool stories, which we did. So we're going to release that as a true bonus episode, and I don't know exactly when that will be because we have so much content coming out for you guys that it's good. It's probably the first time in Civil Gore history where we've had an issue trying to figure out where to put out more content.
Seriously,
so much.
It's usually we're struggling to find some. And
so look for it in your feed. At some point, we're going to have part 3 of the Laura Marie Taylor interview. But part 2 is official interview, and there is a caveat here. We had another guest on the show. You guys may have heard of me last week talking with Lauren about my neighbor down the street, Katie, who's a huge horror fan. She's the one that has the big Michael Myers Halloween sleeve tattooed on her
which
arm.
Was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, she is a huge horror fan. In fact, they just got their new truck. They got the same license plate from the Jeepers Creepers.
Oh my God!
But She found out that I was interviewing Laura Marie, and so Laura Marie had said, "Hey, bring her on. The more the merrier." So the next night when we interviewed, I said, "Hey, Katie, Laura Marie said you could come over." So she was over here in a heartbeat, and so when you'll hear a female voice on the interview. That's Katie, who was sitting in on the interview on the Zoom meeting with us. So if you hear that, that's where that's coming from.
And that just shows how cool Laura Marie was. She had no problems with having another horror fan come on and chat, and it was great. And just, you probably heard in the first part of the interview just how awesome she is. And just you'll get more of that in part 2 today. Yeah,
it's going to be great. So let's get right into the show. This is our first chop. Okay, Brian, the Hammer Horror Project continued. And this one, guarantee you have never heard of this. This is 1958, The Snorkel.
Wasn't that one of the banana splits? Oh no, that's just Snork.
I didn't even want to watch this movie because I was like, this is the stupidest sounding movie I've ever heard of in my life. And really, it's not technically horror. I would definitely classify this more as a thriller variety. But it was on my Hammer Horror list that I'm going off of, so I decided to go ahead and use it. And in IMDb, it does list the horror tag, so I decided it has to count. So I found this film, The Snorkel, and let me tell you, Brian, I was blown away. I
Wow.
was pleasantly surprised. Believe it or not, this movie is actually really, really good. This one is a crime thriller about a young teenage girl who believes that her stepdad murdered her father. But she's still got to live with him. And so the whole movie plays out as this kind of cat and mouse game. And it's not a spoiler to understand, because you find out in the first few minutes of the movie that he actually did kill her father. So he is the murderer. There's no question to that.
So he's the Snorkel?
Yeah, he's the Snorkel. And the Snorkel plays a role in the movie, a very major role in the movie, and that's why it's called that. Although I have to think that this movie just never got remembered because of that silly name.
Well, yeah, and you know what it is? It's like I'm trying hard to take you seriously telling me about a horror movie called The Snorkel.
I know. But so this girl believes that her stepdad killed her father, and she's on to him. And she is played by an actress named Mandy Miller. And Mandy Miller stopped acting. Like she only acted up to a point. She acted up until 1963 was her last film. So she was only in the business for 5 years. And she's still alive today, so she just got out of the business. And she is phenomenal in this. I mean, she is so super smart in this movie. And the great thing about it is the entire film, you can just tell she's intellectually running circles around this murderer guy. I mean, and he knows it. And there's this constant cat and mouse going back and forth. And I just loved watching it play out on screen. It reminded me a little bit of a movie called Night of the Hunter. Which, have you seen that one, Brian?
Which one is that? I might have.
Night of the Hunter is when you had, let me look it up real quick, but I was trying to remember who all was in it. But you had two kids that were basically hiding money from, oh gosh, there's like 50 million Night of the Hunters here. Pull up the actual 55 film. They were trying to hide money from Robert Mitchum.
Oh,
and he plays like this.
Seen that, yeah.
Yeah, he was like playing this really creepy, sleazy guy. But they're kind of trying to hide money from him. And so there's like this kind of cat and mouse game between him and the kids. That's how this movie played out. And it's really tense. It's almost Hitchcockian type thriller. And it has a really good payoff at the end. So I would highly recommend, if you can track this one down. I ended up watching it on Daily Motion, which is kind of a questionable legality site where people just upload stuff. But I could not find this one for streaming. Like, you can't rent it. So that's the only way I could see it. But if you guys can track down the Blu-ray of this, or maybe seek it out and find it on Daily Motion, I would highly recommend checking this one out. It's really, really surprisingly entertaining and good. The Snorkel, 1958.
Nice. Is the soundtrack done by Air Supply? Okay, that was bad. Never mind. All right.
You don't know how accurate you are.
Yeah, I will see myself out. Okay. So yeah, unfortunately my project, I had mentioned it on our last episode, had to go on a bit of a pause because the next one in the series of Amity films I'll be watching comes in my box set. Well, I have good news. It has shipped from Vinegar Syndrome. It's on its way, so it'll arrive this week. Hopefully in time before we record our next episode. If not, I may have to push it back a little further. Maybe I'll just do a couple of Amityvilles the following week. But yeah, so it does ship. It is arriving this week, the box set. And it was like the Amityville Evil Escapes, which is like basically Amityville 4. So that's the one next on the agenda. It just seems silly for me to go watch it when I'm going to have a really good version of it on Blu-ray coming. So I decided to just put a little. I mean, it's not like we didn't have enough to watch. We had a lot of stuff going on. So what I did watch instead was Shudder was kind enough to send us a great screener for the new one of their new films that just came out called Warning: Do Not Play. And this one is, it's another one of these South Korean horror films. They're just phenomenal. I'm gonna give you the little synopsis because I obviously not going. It just came out to Shudder while you're hearing this, so it just released. You'll be able to watch it yourself. So I definitely don't want to give spoilers. So I'll just read the synopsis. It's Mi Jung, played by Seo Ye-ji, is a rookie film director, and she has been preparing a horror film for the past 8 years. One day, Mi Jung hears about a movie which was banned. Mi Jung wants to know about the film. She begins a search for the movie, and her search takes her to meet Jae Hyun, which is played by Jin Seon-kyu, who is the director of the film. And he warns Mi Jung that to forget about his film but she ignores his warning, basically. And her obsession with this movie leads her to a bizarre and horrible cases. This was written in this was not an official synopsis. It's the one I got off of IMDb by someone put it in. That's why it's not the greatest. But basically what it is, I'll do a little bit better about explaining what it is. It's basically, that part is true about she's a film student. She's looking to finish this film she was working on. She hears about this other one filmed by this director that was, the rumor was going around that this movie, he directed it, but he really didn't, and it was filmed by a ghost. So she gets obsessed with finding all about this, and she goes to find out about the director, and he's basically is like, look, and he's all like, you see him, he's like all disheveled, and he looks like he's been through the ringer, and he's basically like, just forget about this, forget you ever heard of it, forget you want to see it, and but she obviously doesn't heed his warning, and that's goes from there. But I mean, it's so funny. When I was watching this, the one thing I will definitely say is, it is amazing when you see especially I noticed the South Korean films are just done so well. When you see that one, see one from there, and then you'll see like an American version of it, you would totally know exactly where they'd make the change, just in little subtle things. Like, and I was watching it, I'm like, okay, if this was filmed remade here, this would have happened, this would have happened, this would have happened. But so I'm glad that that I got to see this version, because I have a feeling this is going to be one that's eventually going to be made over here, especially if it gets a lot of the all the popular buzz that it's been getting, because it's really, really good. So I definitely highly recommend. I've been recommending it to everybody who will listen. That is, I think I even shared it on Twitter a couple times. So yeah, definitely watch that. Warning: Do Not Play. It's on Shudder. So I know nice, almost every one of our listeners has Shudder. So
definitely want to check that one out. Speaking of Shudder, we have another film coming to Shudder next week, I believe.
Yeah. Well, people may have seen it. People may have seen it if they tuned in to the last drive-in, which we'll get to. But
right, yes. If you tuned into Last Drive-In Friday night, you would have already seen it. But it's coming officially to Shudder, I believe, on the 18th. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, this week. Yeah.
Yep. So this one is Scare Package. We got a chance to actually watch this one as a screener before Joe Bob featured it on Last Drive-In, and man, I absolutely love this movie. I watched it again during the Last Drive-In and still loved it. Actually loved it even more because there's a ton of Easter eggs in this movie for horror fans. Yeah. And I picked up on a lot more on the second viewing.
But, yeah, I did too. And it was fun tweeting with everyone tweeting along. You could pick up some stuff too. People were like, "Hey, look at that. Hey, look at that." So yeah, this one's really fun. And we have a little bonus. We actually have the director, Aaron Kuntz, stop by to talk to us. So we're gonna have that as a bonus episode later this week. So you're gonna be getting at least 2 episodes this week from us.
Yes, that bonus episode, the interview with Aaron was awesome. It was really, really good. So you guys are gonna have a real treat for that later this week. We'll just release it as a bonus into your regular feed, so make sure you subscribe so you get all those automatically.
Yeah, and he was a fun guy to talk to, because he's totally like, you could tell he is just a horror fan himself, and you find out a whole bunch of fun stuff about making the movie. So got that coming up for you.
The other movie for Last Drive-In, of course, was the legendary Hogzilla.
Because now you have to say it like that every time you say it. You have to chant it at least 3 times.
Yeah, so Darcy pulled off some stunt where she got the director of Hogzilla, which was a little known and unreleased, I believe, because I don't think the movie was finished. It was ever finished. Film that Joe Bob starred in. Yeah. Called Hogzilla, about a giant man-eating hog. And so they debuted it on Last Drive-In, and it was hilarious. It was
oh my god!
Yeah, it's one of those movies. You know, the old cliche, "So bad it's good." You hear that tossed around all the time. This one, it's actually true.
Yes, this one. That if you need to ever show anyone an example of that sentiment,
yes,
this you go no further than Hogzilla. And there were so. I mean, if you tuned in and watched that whole thing with the list, I mean, the expressions on Darcy's face and Joe Bob's face. I mean, Joe Bob at one point, he was just like at first, you know, you could tell he was just like, I can't believe this is actually going to be shown. And then he was recreating lines from it. He was wearing funny hats. I mean, he was really into it. And they were playing the Hogzilla drinking game throughout. It was probably, I mean, I see everyone tweeting this, and I might have to agree that it's probably the best episode of The Last Drive-In to date, easily. Because
I would say that, yes.
Oh my god! Between the you know, just the tweet along that was going on with it was amazing, and you know, it was like there was just so much fun with just that little segment. I mean, and that was like on top of the scare package portion, which was amazing because that was really fun because you have a whole bunch of horror fans watching a horror comedy anthology that was like completely meta in so many parts. So it's like, you know, it was like almost like built in. It was like the most perfect evening of Joe Bob. So,
and I was pleased to see Scare Package was getting a lot of positive
Yeah.
feedback from the Twitter community. I think people really, really liked it, and I was hoping they would because I really liked it, and I wanted to, you know, you want what you love to be shared by the horror community. That
Right.
that you're not crazy. That this really is a great movie, and I think everybody responded really well to it.
Yeah, I mean, and with the benefit of it being an anthology, you know, there's always that that hook where a lot of people could, you know, at least they'll always find one of the segments to be good. And even if you don't like a segment, you're surrounded by a bunch of other segments. And of course, if you have not seen Scare Package yet, there is a cool surprise in it, which we're not going to say. So definitely, when you watch it, you know, you know, there is something nice. And we actually catered our whole interview around to make sure that we did not give that surprise away.
That's right. Yeah, it's that good a surprise.
Yes. So.
Next up on the list, Halloween Kills possibly delayed. We don't know yet.
Yeah, it's a rumor.
It would not be a surprise. It's a rumor. And, you know, with the whole COVID thing, and we don't know what's going to happen this fall with a second wave or anything. We just don't know what's going to happen. I know one of the few movies I saw that got bumped up in release was the new Bond film, and it only got bumped up by 5 days. Which
and
was
Bill
not
and
much.
Ted, right? Got bumped up 2 days or something?
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, Bill and
2
Ted
weeks,
actually got bumped up 2 weeks. That one was pretty significant, but everything else has been kind of being pushed back yet again.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility. We'll keep up to date on that one.
Well, and it is Universal, so I'm wondering if they may. I mean, it's weird if they. You know, I know how we were saying we were on both sides of the whole thing, but like, I'm wondering if. I mean, to not have that movie in the fans, like, I mean, fans' hands is not the right term, but you know, like if the fans cannot see this in October, it's gonna take something away because it was so. You know, the whole thing was set up so that you had. This October you have Halloween Kills. The following October you have Halloween Ends. You don't want. I don't know. I don't think they can. They have to do everything I think in their power to have it so everyone can see it in October.
Yeah.
Whatever that.
Shift it around in October, but just leave it in October.
Yeah, it's
sometime
got to be October. Yeah,
I mean,
even
come on. This Halloween was going to be on a Saturday, and there's going to be the 30th anniversary of Halloween Horror Nights. I mean, this was going to shaping up to be the perfect storm Halloween of all time, and then this COVID stuff just screwed it all up.
Yeah,
so we got to have something.
Yeah.
Give us something.
Yeah, and well, I mean, on a positive note, there's also in the same rumor mill of that is that the trailer should be released pretty much within the next 2 weeks at some point, is what I keep seeing. So that'll be cool. At least we'll get to see the trailer. Although I don't know, that could be a bad thing because then everyone's going to get all excited and their appetite's wet for it, and then to find out, well, we're pushing it back till October. You know, that's what scares me. Like Can you imagine they did it? They said, well, you know what, we want to release it in October. We heard you, Brian and Tim from Civil Gore, so we will release it now October 2021, and then people will come after us. But no, unless they did like both in the same month. Remember that rumor coming out early on when they were thinking they were going to release both parts in the same
like it's going to be it's going to be like a Back to the Future 2 and 3 deal, or they film them both at the same time and they release them like within weeks of each other.
Well,
or something.
maybe that's not so far off.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
Next up on here, I don't know about this one, Brian. I didn't. Cause you keep up on the social media thing way more than I do. But this one is Darcy cyberbullied.
Yeah, I mean, there was a specific. I'm not going to go into the specifics of what happened, but basically there were some people that were, like shouting at some negative comments her way. So yeah, we've always been a proponent against that stuff, and we've said it many times on the show. We've gotten even on soapboxes, Tim, to say that.
Yes.
And so and especially someone like Darcy, who we've had the pleasure of meeting in person, and she's just as sweet as you can imagine, and almost like to remember when we met her, we were actually surprised and taken aback how shy she was, because she has such a fun personality on like the show, and when you see her, but like when we got to talk to her, she was relatively shy and reserved, and then she warmed up after we talked to her for a bit. So and if you talk to her on social media, she is like such a champion of promoting horror and the Joe Bob brand and everything. It's even worse that someone felt that they had to. Look, we've seen it a million times. I saw it with someone else we follow today. They get these negative comments towards them, and it's just, it's. To say it's got to stop. There's so many things that literally in this world right now that needs to stop. But this one just popped up because it's obviously in the nature of our show, and we're big fans of Joe Bob and Darcy, and for a while it took her off social media for a few days, and how active she is. So for that to have put her off there, the good thing is I didn't even see the actual comment, I guess, that set her. That got her so upset. I know what it was because I read up on it, but I saw hundreds and hundreds of people throwing their support for her, so which is good, because anyone that knows the fans of that show, how important Darcy is to it and to the community. So yeah, we're not getting on a soapbox or anything. There's way more. Obviously, there's so many things we could get up on a soapbox about right now, but. Just kind of like I felt like I wanted to address it slightly, just because we are so active in the on Joe Bob nights with the Twitter and stuff, so I wanted to make sure we kind of mentioned it. So don't leave, throw some support Darcy's way, send her some kind words, she needs it.
Yeah, and remember, there's way more good people out on social media than there are bad. It's just the bad ones have the louder voices sometimes. And typically sadly. you'll see a lot more support thrown behind people in instances like this than you will see people actually instigating it. So
it's sad that the voices are louder when they're meaner, but I think the quantity of better people are out there, so that's good.
Yeah. And speaking of social media, Creepazoid Kelly, who's one of our friends on Twitter, definitely sent her some good thoughts. She was going through some rough times, so we decided to just mention that.
Yeah, and if just send her a message. She's checking. She's been, I don't know if you follow her. She's been in the hospital. In and out. And if you've read the amazing Fangoria article on her and just how, she's really like the heart of the horror community on social media, and it's. So just send her some good thoughts. Because I know she's going through a really bad time with her medical issues right now. So I just if you follow her and you just send some good positive vibes her way, and let's hope she starts feeling a little better. So
all right, well, let's get right into the second part of our interview with Lauren Marie Taylor. I know if you guys loved the first part of this interview, you're going to absolutely love the second part, in which we talked about even more things about the filming of Friday the 13th, some more stories she came on to share. We'll have Katie comes in for some questions and answers, a lot of good back and forth, and just a really fun, casual hangout. It was a really, really good time. And again, we thank Lauren Marie for coming on. It was such an awesome week that, and again, we'll tell you the whole story about this at some point. Of how above and beyond she went for this.
Yeah, it's like I miss her now because we've talked to her so much that week, and like we haven't this week. So it's like
I know it's like
I feel like we have to just call her up and say, hey, what are you up to? How's it going?
Yeah. So guys, you're gonna love this one. Here it is, our second part of our interview with Lauren Marie Taylor, Friday the 13th, Part 2's Vicky.
So we have to talk about the ugly brown underwear that were supposed to be sexy. Okay, so back in the 80s, anything that was shiny or satin was considered sexy. Like people had satin sheets on their bed. We wore satin little undies and whatnot. So these were supposed to be sexy. And I remember when they bought them and I looked at them, and I don't even know if you can tell, but when they even shot it, when I looked at them, I was like, ugh! You know, because I mean, first of all, brown. Is brown a sexy color? Okay, let's all agree, yes or no?
No.
Yeah.
No, thank you. It's not. It's not sexy. Okay, it's just not. Not only were they brown, and of course they were satin. They looked like they got them from the 5 and 10 store. They had these stores back then, way back in the 60s. There was one called Woolworths, and there was one called the 5 and 10 store, which is where my
Woolworth. Yeah.
It was like, think of the dollar store now. Okay,
Oh.
it was like they ran out into somewhere in Connecticut where we were filming and said, let's find some sexy underwear at, 10 cents. And they brought them and they said, here you go, Lauren. And I was just like, wow, those are really sexy. It's just as sexy as that ugly V-neck sweater that I changed into. And gray cargo pants. I was feeling really sexy. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I always found it odd the amount of sweaters people had at a camp. I mean, I know it was before the summer, I guess technically, right? But it was kind of funny because I'm like, I went to sleepaway camp, and I think I had a sweatshirt. That was about it. You know, the rest was all like t-shirts and stuff. So I've always found that kind of comical, just the amount of sweaters in the that everyone was changing into.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the camp was on the border of Canada or something, supposedly. But I'll tell you, I think Jason killed Vicky because of the ugly underwear and because of the sweatshirt.
It could be, but but remember, we discussed it. She may be alive, according to Tim and I's fan fiction that's coming up.
Well, here is what I'm thinking. Okay, so we have to talk about Vicky's yellow car.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, where did they find that car? You know, I remember when I was in Poland about, 40 years ago. No, 30 years ago, I was in Poland. And they had those yellow cars everywhere. So I figured Vicky must be from Poland and brought the car over with her. And Steve Miner at one point, he said to me, oh, we're going to have you drive the car into the camp. And I said, no, you're not. And he said, well, yeah, you can just drive it. It's part of your, Vicky comes to camp type of thing, kind of what they did with Amy Steele's character, with Jenny. And I said, I can't drive. And he said, what do you mean you can't drive? I said, I'm a New York City girl. We don't get driver's licenses. We don't know how to drive. We don't take driver's ed. And he was just like, oh my God, this girl, I think I drove him crazy with that one. But I was thinking, I was thinking that if I had the mystery machine van from Scooby-Doo, if I had that, I would have said to Steve Miner, I'll get in that and I'll get away from Jason, because that's the only thing that would have gotten me away. So, maybe I was meant to be Thelma from Scooby-Doo. I don't know. I reference that a lot because it was one of my favorite cartoons growing up, because I was really into ghosts and scary.
Oh, me too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I know a lot of our fans just grew up on Scooby-Doo. That's probably where we got it from.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I never saw any of the movies that came out, but I loved it. And my mother had a bloodhound.
Oh.
So was Scooby-Doo a bloodhound? Wasn't he a bloodhound?
Not sure did they ever say what he was?
I don't know.
I think he's a Great Dane. Great Dane.
Yeah, Great Dane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're right. He must have been a Great Dane.
The new movie is actually pretty good. The new Scoob movie that just came out. Yeah, it was pretty good. We watched it the other day with the kids.
All right, I may have to trust you and watch that one and relive my childhood all over.
It's kind of it's kind of a cute little update to the characters and stuff.
Okay, do they have the guy that has like the high voltage and all that fur?
Oh, I don't remember.
I remember having dreams about him and being creeped out, like him coming towards me like this to electrocute me.
See, this is where being an audio podcast, you lose so much, because I wish everyone could see your reactions the way you do it too. That's the best part. It adds so much. So people that are listening I apologize. You're missing some of the funniest parts that Lauren's doing. But
oh my gosh. Oh yeah. So the other backstage thing, if you will, I call it backstage because I come from a theater background originally, was looking for Mark by going up the stairs. Okay, the dude's in a wheelchair due to his motorcycle accident, and I'm supposed to go up the stairs. I'm going, Mark, 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 like that, like I'm calling him for dinner or something like that. And they have me looking up the steps, and then they have me starting to go up the steps. And I turned to Steve Miner. I went, okay, is there like a hidden elevator that Vicky doesn't know about or something? Because how did that dude get up the stairs? And again, he gets very like that with me. He goes, Laura Marie, it's in the script. Just do what's in the script and walk up the stairs and film you walking up the stairs. I said, okay, I'm just trying to figure out how he got up there. You know, do they have one of those, you know, where you can go up sitting on the chair, like like in The Conjuring, they had that, you know, where the girl goes up and down the staircase. You know, it's like, did they have one of those? So that kind of, yeah, that was like, what's going on here? I think even Tom McBride was like, why did you go upstairs and look for me? You would have still been alive. I said, it doesn't matter. You're already dead. In the movie. I mean,
yeah. But yeah, no, and that was, yeah, you know, it's like so funny because there's so many things in those movies that you don't even like notice that are funny, because there's some other ones that like I don't know, my always, one of the things I always pointed out is like, okay, Friday the 13th, you know, part 2 takes place one time period. The next day is technically Friday the 13th part 3. Jason is much bigger and clean shaven, but with no, you know, I mean, they show how he changes his clothes. They actually write that into the story, because when he goes to that little like shop, you see him for a brief second in his old part 2 outfit. But I didn't see him shave, and that's what I always want to do. Like, I want to know, because he had a scraggly beard, and you know his face was deformed. I sliced my face open, and I'm like, I don't have like weird head, you know?
Yeah.
So how does he do it?
It was funny because when they were prepping all of the special effects stuff, we went to Fullerton's studio, and they were making molds of all of us. So they had the mold of Tom McBride. So before we all met each other, we saw each other's molds. So I knew what Tom McBride looked like because he already had the machete in the mold. And for me, it was not a big deal. They just had like a little mold so that they could do the rip away with the jeans, with the ugly cargo pants. But other people, like they had the whole body molds of Marta Kober's character and Bill Randolph. They had like the whole back and everything like that. And it was walking into his studio where he would create all of the special effects molds that they would use to pump the blood through. It was creepy, but it was so cool because it was like, oh, this is how they do that. Wow. And I get a backseat to this. It was really cool. Did you know, by the way, that the original name of the movie was Jason? Just plain old Jason. It was on my script. I actually found it in my attic. It was just this little name, Jason. And yeah, I'll have to take a picture of it. And I guess they wound up changing it because they figured if it comes out, nobody's going to know that it's part 2 from Friday the 13th, part 1. So they had to make sure that it was called Friday the 13th, part 2.
I still remember the first commercials for it was so cool because they just kind of started like, you know, going like 13, 14, 15, you know, and the count of the death count. And, you know, back then it was like, yeah, because think about it, like, you know, you had slashers at that point, but really I don't know if there was a true people were kind of doing like, you know, kill counts or death counts or anything. So they were kind of like, you know, they did that in the trailer. So that shows how cool that was.
Yeah, it was cool. And it was that whole boom type of thing in your face, you know, that whole perspective thing that you learn about in art class. And the numbers are coming at you like they're going to eat you.
Yes, it was, and that was so funny. Actually, I'm sorry, I just laughed because I can see you like doing the 3D effect on the screen.
I know.
No, listen, if you've noticed, I mean, I'm, you know, Jewish
It's
New Yorker.
New York,
My hands are flying all over the place constantly. Yeah.
But North Carolinians are looking at us like, right.
What's with them? By the way, I had watched. I had told you I'd watched that long documentary, but I found my copy of His Name is Jason one, so I watched that today. There was a little clip of Steve Dash talking, and oh my God, does he out New York us times 1,000? They make us sound like Tim. Like that's how strong his New York accent is. I didn't remember. I was like, wow, that is a strong accent.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was there, I don't remember Steve Dash being so prominent because he really came in when the stunt stuff happened. I mean, he was around and he's a great guy, always a very nice guy. But I knew Jason to be Warrington because Warrington Gillette was the one who came in and kind of did some stalking stuff and whatnot. But then when it came to go through the window and it wouldn't break for Warrington, and Warrington is not a stunt guy, and then I think Warrington got hurt because a shard did get into him. That's when Steve Dash just took over for everything.
Okay. Yeah, because I know there was always a discussion about that. They always kind of said, like, you know, they weren't sure who did what. And
the real Jason,
yeah.
I mean, in the credits, Warrington is credited as being Jason, and Steve Dash is credited as being the stunt for Jason.
Okay.
So they kind of shared it in a way. But because the sack is always on his head, you don't know who's who. But when it came to the makeup, I was there when they were putting the makeup on Warrington.
See, Lauren knows the secrets.
That's right.
He knows
Yeah,
all the
I need
secrets.
to know what those are. I need those secrets. I go all out for Halloween every year. It's my favorite holiday, so I do all the gore, the makeup, the contacts, and everything. I usually put kind of a gory twist on any costume I do. So even if it's like a seemingly normal, bubbly character, I kind of turn it to more of a darker character, I guess you could say, something a little bit more gory. I've always wanted to know what the secrets are behind the makeup and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it does take, like I said, they make it out of a latex type of material. And then for Jason's character, you know, for Warrington / Steve Dash, they would have to layer it like in Goldmember, you know, the Austin Powers movie Goldmember.
Yeah.
Peeling it off.
Where he's peeling it off and
They had to like kind of attach it on to make it look like he had a really bad sunburn and his face peeling, or he was under the water for too long and maybe some eels started sucking at his cheeks and his eyeballs came out. I mean, it's just really it was disgusting to look at. I'm not going to lie.
I've heard it takes hours for some of those people to get the makeup done. Like some people will sit in the trailer for like 4 or 5 hours just for makeup.
Yeah, because even if they make a cast of you, they still have to build on that, you know, and makeup has come so far. But if it's, you know, if they're really changing the shape of your face, then it goes into all those I can't say the word.
Prosthetics.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You know, yes, I went to college and I have degrees. I just can't speak. So yeah, it's very time consuming, but it is fun because how often do you really get to do that as an actor? Not very often, you know, unless you make your life is doing horror movies and like you're always Freddy or you're always Jason, you play that multiple times. If you're a character who gets killed or what have you, you know, you only get to do it once. And for me, it, you know, wasn't very exciting because it was just my leg, but I was privy to seeing everybody else's heads and bodies and rear ends being made.
So do you have like I may be covering something that you guys talked about the other night, but do you have like, I would have tried to steal like The Mask and run away with it. Do you have like a piece of like movie memorabilia or something that you kind of like took off set with you and hung on to?
They were pretty strict about it. I do have that V-neck sweater.
You have the sweater?
That's awesome. Real ugly one. I have to find it, but I do have it in a trunk somewhere in my attic. I do have it, and I think I may still have a pair of the cargo pants because they bought multiples because of the blood and the rip away and all that other stuff. But anything else, it was very...
So you threw away the brown underwear then? That's gone.
Oh, no. I willingly gave those to Jason.
They're not making a comeback.
Yeah, I'm like, put this on the board. She'll look much better in them than I did.
Well, you'll have to, you have to dig that up because if we do if we end up doing that commentary, that would be great because we could do. You could be in full attire when you go to.
You have to come on wearing it.
Come on, I would really have to find it. I could swear it's in my attic somewhere. I don't think it got eaten by moths. I could be wrong, but I haven't been in my attic for a while, and I'm kind of scared of it. So I'm scared of my own attic. Yeah, we're all scared of the attic. We don't want to go in there. It's like, we live in this, really old house. It's almost 100 years old. Well, it's not really old in the scheme of things, but for us, it's old because we're not 100 yet. So we have this attic, and it's kind of like, what's in there? I don't know. Sometimes we open it a little bit, we go, ah! It's scary. It's just scary.
Oh, that's right. You haven't heard her scream yet. She does the killer screams.
No, I heard about that.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Ask you for that.
I can fix you, but we have to wait here. Here's my good luck cats. I have a black cat. This is Charlie. Say hi, Charlie.
Hi, Charlie.
Look, she fights me though. Watch. She really does fight me. Okay, you want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay, ready, Katie?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Earmuffs.
Oh man, I'm so sad because the laptop cuts out some of the sound. Yeah. I think you just broke a barrier and it just cuts out past a certain point.
I did dub a bunch of other movies and whatnot, and there was a period where I was being called in constantly for different horror movies that I wasn't even in. And I think it was my third callback for a Broadway musical. I had been screaming for an hour, and I got out of the studio and I went to the third callback, and it was Stephen Sondheim, and it was for Merrily We Roll Along. And I got up on stage and I started to sing, and I realized nothing was coming out.
Oh no.
The way it had the previous two auditions, and it was the final audition. Callback. And Stephen Sondheim kind of looked at me and he said, "What happened?" And I just went, "I dub in horror movies." And he looked at me and goes, "And that's good for your voice?" I said, "It's good for my bank account."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great. Yeah, well, that happened yesterday too, actually. But this one we caught more of, I think, because yesterday when you did for Joshua, it literally I saw Zoom flicker almost. So it was great.
Well, you know what it is? The cats are around, and I think I held back a little bit. So you'll have to show Katie the one that I've done.
Yeah, we've got it.
I think that cat behind you is maybe, I don't know how often you do the scream, but that cat behind you that's just cleaning itself.
Oh, that's Luna.
Luna is cozy and happy and not bothered at all.
Yeah.
Oh, Luna's a chunk. Cat, actually. She's another visitor. She's actually going back to Brooklyn tomorrow.
Oh.
So one of our 8 cats, of which most of them are visitors. So she's going back. And then I have a deaf cat who really doesn't care about anything.
Yeah, I would imagine that wouldn't.
So I have a question for you guys, since you're Friday the 13th fan. So are you Kevin Bacon fans too?
Absolutely.
I love Kevin Bacon.
Okay,
absolutely.
He was in part 1, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I just got you closer to him.
That's right, Tim.
Yeah.
That's.
What?
If you think about it, now we're 2 degrees away from Kevin Bacon.
Oh, but it gets better than that. It's not just that we were in the same franchise. I was actually part of an off-Broadway show with him called Album. So I know Kevin Bacon. So now you have the shine.
I know. I'm I literally think this podcast has now just reached a new plateau now that we can officially say we are 2 degrees away from Kevin Bacon. Because that's
2 degrees away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the game. But now, originally we were figuring it was just it was kind of 2.5 but now we know it's a full 2.
Yeah, I mean, we've run into him in the train station in New York City in Columbus Circle because they live in the city. Yeah. When Katie was about 14, we ran into him, and and whenever I see him, he's like, oh, like Alec Baldwin too. He's like, how's the family? Because we all have kids around the same age, and it's yeah, it's cool. So come to New York City, baby, and maybe we'll run into him.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go walking around, and I'm gonna go up to him and say, "By the way, we're 2 degrees away," and just let him figure that one out.
So I have a question for you guys. Okay, what were your horror influences when you guys were younger?
Okay,
Like,
you want to go first, Tim?
I mean, you guys know that it was The Blob for me and whatnot. You know, I love The Shining, Silence of the Lambs, and I'll tell you about more. You know, because I don't. Yeah, yeah. Tell me your influences.
For me, it was definitely The Shining, and the reason why, and I clearly remember this. I had a babysitter, and she was watching it on HBO one night, and I had already gone to bed, and I snuck out of bed, and I crawled around the corner, and I was hiding behind the couch watching what she was watching. And I remember the scene that I came upon was the twins in the hallway. And then where it flashes and they're laying on the hallway with blood all over them. And then they're coming and they're doing the "come play with us, Danny" part.
Yeah.
And it scared me so bad. I ran back, got in my bed, and I was terrified to even watch that movie for years afterwards. I finally got the nerve to watch it, and now it's one of my favorites of all time for sure.
Yes. See, I have to say, I think I started the first, so I can't remember the placement exactly at the time. I just remember the movies that got me into it because I know my mom at one point when my parents were divorced. Yeah, I was living with my mom from like 4 on, and my dad was living in the city. So, but my mom would try when she'd go out to a movie, she didn't want to always just leave me with a babysitter, so she'd take me. So I remember I saw that Frank Langella Dracula in the theaters. But I mean, like, I think I remember like falling asleep because I was a little kid, so I didn't get it. But I do remember though, when she did leave me with the babysitter once, she let me watch Halloween, the first Halloween.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but I loved it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. And then Friday the 13th, I would always see on TV as for the commercial when it was coming out. And when it finally came to cable, my mom was great. She basically, like, we were in like a kind of like a 1-bedroom apartment, and but she let me have the bedroom, and she took like the bed set up like out in the main part. So, and she let me have cable in my room. So to me that was cool. So when Friday the 13th came on HBO, to me that was it. I watched it over and over again, but there was always a part that I will say that kind of freaked me out as a kid was when oh my God, I forgot her. The character was Marcy, and where she got the axe in the face in the in the bathroom, and for some reason that used to creep me out. But I would always watch it, but hoping that I'd somehow be distracted and miss that scene. And I still remember, but freaked myself out because I think one time I decided it would be a good idea to watch it at like 1 a.m. by myself, as like however old I was. So in 80, I was probably like on cable, like probably like 81 or 82. So I was like 11 or something. I was like way too young to really should be watching that. But after that, I was hooked, and I watched all of them. And I remember after 3, I kind of just, not that I grew out of horror, but I just I hadn't seen Friday the 13th in a while, and I got into more things like The Shining and and pretty much whatever I could get into. And then I kind of revisited back to Friday the 13th, and that was. Yeah, that and Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, those 3 biggie franchises were always in there. But it's funny, I got more appreciation to more of the obscure horror when I was in when I went to college, because I went to San Francisco State and De Anza College when I was in California, and I met a friend of mine, Paul, who was really into horror too. So we did. He got me into a lot of other horror movies that I had never seen before. That wasn't so mainstream, and that was really cool. And we even made our own disastrous short horror film that, while the effects were decent, everything else was not. So but, I still got to dig that up. I've been trying to find it to show Tim, and I cannot ever find the copy of it. I know I have it somewhere. It's on an unmarked disc at this point. So, but really it was the early slashers that really got me into horror. So you were one of my first like horror people in there that I knew.
Oh no, I'm feeling guilty for indoctrinating you.
No, it was good. Yeah.
Halloween is definitely my favorite. I've been watching horror movies since I was a kid. My parents never really regulated what I would watch on TV, so I've been watching them as long as I can even remember, as long as I've even had a TV. And Halloween, that one always stuck with me. I love the original. I'm a big Jamie Lee Curtis fan, so
yeah, I am too.
her throughout all of them. I know I know they got harped on a little bit, but I like Rob Zombie. I'm a big fan of Rob Zombie. And so I love Rob Zombie. And I actually did a meet and greet with him at one of his concerts, and he actually saw my sleeve. I have Michael Myers. I have a little Michael Myers sleeve right here. I don't know if anybody can see that.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can see
I
it.
told you I'm gonna get a half sleeve. Right
Oh
now.
my God.
Wow.
Oh, whoa.
That's beautiful.
Wow. That's crazy. That's a lot of
so-
work, girl.
And so I mean, I have an appreciation for the original one the most, but I loved, Rob Zombie saw the tattoo. He saw my sleeve because I was having him sign my record that I brought, and he saw it, and he commented on it, and he said, he's like, damn, that's cool. And it was just like this unreal moment for me. And I was like, one of my favorite directors, as far as like big time gore, but definitely like John Carpenter, Halloween, the original ones, love them.
Yeah, it's funny because I was saying how I'm a huge The Shining fan, and I also just love Jack Nicholson. And back when I was on the soap opera on Loving, we got invited to a lot of parties. And at one of the parties, it was at a tennis player's house. The tennis player's name was Vitas Gerulaitis. And
Oh
John
my God, I
McEnroe
remember
was
that
there.
name. Oh my God.
Yeah,
that
isn't
you
that
said that
crazy?
name.
So
Sorry, I'm sorry.
John McEnroe was there, and everybody was there. Tatum O'Neal was there, and Jack Nicholson was at this party at Vitas Gerulaitis' house. And I met Jack Nicholson, and it was so funny because I was shy. I mentioned to you guys before that I was kind of shy when I was younger. But let's face it, acting, especially acting in a horror movie, it just, it all comes out of you. You just like get totally released from your shyness. And I noticed Jack Nicholson sitting at the bar in the house.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband says, why don't you go say hi to him? And I was like, okay, and I always took a dare. And I said, dare me to do it. He goes, I dare you. And I walked right over to Jack Nicholson and I said, hi, Mr. Nicholson. And I said, I'm Laura Marie, and he goes, I was wondering when you were going to come over and say,
No way.
I almost died. I mean, I could feel the blood leaving my body. And so I hung out with him and we talked tennis and drank some more.
Oh my
Oh my
God, that was
gosh.
awesome.
He's my crush. He's one of my crushes, actually, my horror movie crushes. I feel like you have to have this shirt because I seriously I got so excited about this jersey because right here, just so you know.
Okay, here we go. I gotta put my glasses on.
There
Oh,
he is.
yay! We have a Jack Nicholson mask.
We do.
We have a Jack Nicholson mask in our studio outside, and it's from
Yeah,
when he's coming through.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, it's horrifying. It's when he's coming through. Wendy, I'm home.
Oh gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, we love it. I grew up I'm going to age myself a little bit. I grew up in the 60s, and we only had maybe 3 TV channels. And it was during the time when it was midnight, everything would just go to gray. But on Saturday nights, they had this show called Creature Feature. And then they had another one called Chiller Theater. And they would run the old Frankenstein movies and the old Dracula movies. And then they had Godzilla and Mothra, those old movies from the East where they had to, what do they call it? They had to dub them in, and it was crazy. Anyway, so I'm living across the street from the cemetery in the Bronx. I'm watching Creature Feature. I'm watching Godzilla and Frankenstein and Dracula. And every night on Saturday night after watching these shows, my grandmother would let us, watch them. I'd be in my bed with the covers pulled over my head. You could hear my teeth shaking because all I could think was they're all going to come out of this area and they're just going to come into my bedroom and they're just going to kill me or froth or drool over me. And I just had nightmares. So that was my official crazy entree into the whole horror thing besides your basic movies like The Blob and Jaws and The Exorcist. And then later, when I was a little bit older, The Shining.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Brian. So again, another awesome interview. And like we said before, we will have part 3, which is just kind of a bonus. I wouldn't even call it outtakes because they're so good, but it's more of just a bonus hangout chat session with Lauren Marie that occurred after the part that you just heard when we were just kind of off the air talking. So we'll have that as a bonus sometime. It may not be this week. It may be next week. I don't know, but you'll get it in your feed at some point.
Yeah, and it will be, since it's part 3, it will be in 3D. So
That's right. Yeah. So make sure you have good headphones.
Yes.
So let's get to our main feature. And guys, I'm gonna be right up front and honest with you. It's gonna be really difficult for me to talk about this movie because I didn't understand a damn thing.
It was definitely one of the more confusing. And now I watched this with Julie too, and she is one that can figure out a movie. I think you said Olivia does this too. She figures out a movie in like 5 seconds, and we were done afterwards, and we both kind of looked at each other. We're like, why did this happen? I mean, yes, we got the eventual thing that was going on, like the main point, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff we just looked at each other like, did you understand why that happened? Did you know what? And what we're talking about is 2020's Blumhouse's foray into the old TV nostalgia there with Fantasy Island.
Yeah, now I really don't mind them resurrecting old properties and putting some kind of horror spin on them. I thought it was great.
Oh yeah, no, I love that kind of take on it.
I think it's cool, and I was actually really looking forward to this one until it started getting like 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like, uh-oh, something may have gone wrong here with a Blumhouse film, because they're usually usually even the bad Blumhouse films are at least decent. They're decent enough to watch, and I will say this one, to me, was not as bad as the reviews made it out to be, so don't get me wrong there. To me, it doesn't deserve to be an 8%.
No, because I enjoyed watching it. I did not enjoy watching it, so to me, that automatically should give it like at least 50 points right there. If you enjoy it.
The ratings to me, an 8% movie is a movie that I want to turn off because I'm so bored out of my mind. Right. I don't even want to finish it. I sat there and watched this in one go. I had no problem with the acting and the general entertainment value of watching it. So, but I did have big problems with the script, as we'll get into in a little bit. But this was directed by Jeff Wadlow, starring Michael Pena as Mr. Rourke, Maggie Q as Gwen Olsen, Lucy Hale as Melanie Cole, Austin Stowell, Patrick Sullivan, Jimmy O. Yang as Brax Weaver, Portia Doubleday as Sloan Madison, Ryan Hansen as J.D. Weaver, Michael Rooker, I love Michael Rooker, as Damon, Parisa Fitz-Henley as Julia, Mike Vogel as Lieutenant Sullivan. Mike Vogel was in Under the Dome. He was here he was here in
Cloverfield.
Quite a bit.
He's good.
During that filming. Kim Coates as Devilface and Robbie Jones as Alan Chambers. When the owner and operator of a luxurious island invites a collection of guests to live out their most elaborate fantasies in relative seclusion, chaos quickly descends. And this is a very loose version of the TV series. Now, Brian, I watched the TV series growing up when I was a kid, but I feel like you probably remember more of it than I do because you were slightly older.
Yeah.
Not by much.
Yeah, I remembered it a lot. So
because when I hit it, when was Fantasy Island? Like, when was the actual TV show?
My God,
I was
late 70s, right?
Yeah, and I think I was just too young at the time to.
Well, it was Fantasy Island and The Love Boat. Yeah, so 77 to 84 it was on. But I remember Fantasy Island and The Love Boat were like back to back when I used to watch it. So
at the height, I would have been 10, and at the low point, I would have been
5.
Yeah, I would have been 3 to 10. I don't know. I felt like it was always over my head, but I liked watching, Tattoo, and there were certain aspects of it that I could get. But I feel like, unlike The Love Boat, I think The Love Boat to me was a little more accessible at that age. I just feel like I remember The Love Boat more. But yeah, I still got the gist of it. Obviously, these people come to these islands and they are whisked into this fantasy, and there's some kind of element of magic about it. It's a very strange plot device for a TV show, if you really
Yeah,
think
and
about
there was, I remember there was a couple of episodes specifically that had a horror slant to them. So I do remember that. There was one I remember that actually like used to scare me as a kid where something with, I just remember there being some kind of supernatural presence or something, and there was a big like glass like ceiling that crashed in or something. But I remember as being a kid being a little like freaked out by it. So it wasn't all like, fun and fanciful. There was a dark side. So I'm sure that's what Blumhouse, the creators behind this one, probably remembers some of those more like horror themed ones and said, you know what, that's a great idea if they made it full on horror, because essentially what they were, it was an anthology show. So you know what goes better with anthologies than horror? So it was pretty much like a perfect, match that was there that nobody saw until now, I guess.
And I thought the premise was actually a really good setup for a horror movie. That's what I was about to say, because you have each set of characters kind of going through their own horror tale. It's almost like an anthology that's playing out with switched character perspective. So instead of sequential stories, but you're just cutting between them. That sounds like a perfect formula for a horror movie. Yeah. But unfortunately, this movie gets so bogged down into weird plot twists that I could not keep anything straight in this movie. And now, granted, I might have just been tired watching this, and I may have not had my coffee. I don't know. I don't know what was going on, but this movie was incomprehensible to me. And I don't feel like I'm that alone in that, because I've read reviews and I feel like other people thought the script was a mess.
Yeah, because there was twist upon twist upon twist, and almost to the point of where you're like, by the last final twist in this, you're just like, really? I mean, it's like, okay, whatever. Like,
So,
but
I guess we should go through the broad overview. I'll give you the broad overview of their story. So you have businesswoman Gwen Olsen. So her fantasy is she's going to accept a marriage proposal that she rejected several years ago.
And that is like classic Fantasy Island kind of a thing right there,
That one had the most Fantasy Island vibe to the TV show.
Yeah, I agree.
And I will have to say, well, before I forget, while I mention that, there were aspects of this where I thought they did a pretty good job, whether intentionally or unintentionally, of capturing the feel of like a melodramatic TV series.
Yeah,
there were times
you're right,
where it just had that TV feel to it, which I'm hoping was intentional.
I think it was. I have to imagine it was, based off of just the overall style of this movie. There was kind of a lot of some wink wink nod nod moments in there, so I would have to think that was intentional.
You have former police officer Patrick Sullivan. He enlists in a war as a tribute to his late dad, so he's kind of in a war type fantasy. Step Brothers JD and Brax Weaver. These are the guys that are kind of the comedic relief.
Oh my God, were they ever? And both those actors I've seen in so many things, and they're both awesome. Like, do you remember? You remember what? Of course, what JD Weaver? I'm sorry, Ryan Hansen was in, right?
No.
Man, he played Candy Andy in Two Broke Girls, the guy that owned the candy shop.
You're right. Oh, I didn't even pick up on that. You're right.
So and I've seen him in a couple things. He's always been I think he does a great job. So I was actually really excited when I saw him in there. I'm like, oh, cool. So, and then of course, if you've seen Jimmy O Yang and many of some comedy things, so you knew right there and then when they introduced them, you knew you're like, okay, whatever their storyline is, there's going to be a lot of fun involved in this thing.
Yeah, and no surprise, their fantasy is basically to go to this celebrity crazy rave at a mansion type celebrity party. Right. So, I mean, this is one of those parties like I actually love
like a Bud Light commercial back in the day.
Yeah,
remember
it looked
those?
Or an MTV Spring Break,
right.
Rich kids edition where you have like the guy on the jet ski in the pool and all these hot supermodels walking around in bikinis.
It kind of almost reminded me like something that could have been. Remember that movie? Was it Bedazzled with Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley, where she was like the devil? Like I kind of felt like their storyline could have been plucked out of that segment out of that movie. But
it reminds me of everything my college days were not.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah.
And then finally, you have Melanie Cole, who is seeking revenge on a bully from her past. So
Okay.
this is Lucy Hale's role, and she decides to take revenge on her tormentor, and these various fantasies and plot lines are kind of intercut, and they start to interweave. And I will have to say, I mean, I give some credit to, as complicated as the plot was, I do give some credit as to how these characters start to interact and intersect, and these stories intersect. There's a little bit of cleverness going on there, but I just feel like it's not clear enough, and I don't know if that's a fault of the script or the directing or quite what it was, but I ended up being more confused than I was impressed by the intersection of these stories.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant. Like, it was almost like I liked how they kind of, like, okay, so there were almost like two big twists towards the end, which we're not going to go into, obviously, so you can see this for yourself. But, like, the first one would have been enough. It was the second one, that, like, the topper one, to that finished off with the final twist that I'm like, it's like that, a little far-fetched to me. That, like, that whole, I don't know, the whole tie-in, though. And, and then it's like, I figured there was, like, this, like, I don't think, like, and this is always, I'm always going to say this, whenever you have Michael Rooker in there, I feel like there's never going to be enough Michael Rooker. So it's like, no. I wanted more Michael Rooker because he's just like, I don't know, he's a gift, I think, to any film he goes in. So,
and I think he's got the reputation of being a really nice guy too, from what I've heard of the convention.
Yeah, right. That's what I've heard too. And I mean, it's like, obviously, you've seen him in the Marvel Universe. He's been great, and I think
Walking Dead.
Well, yeah, I mean, Cliffhanger. He was great in. It's just he's always got like this. He's almost, dare I say, he's like, but he's in so many wide variety, but he's almost like approaching that, like, kind of like that Nick Cage thing, like, like he has its own, like, Michael Rooker thing going on. Yeah. So it's like,
so I don't know much more to say about this movie because I don't want to go into the plot line because I couldn't tell you if I wanted to.
And you don't want to give it away. You don't want to give what you do know away, so.
But I even went back, Brian, immediately following the movie. I said, okay, I'm going to go to the wiki page. I'm going to read the entire plot synopsis and get this straight in my head. And I read the entire plot off the wiki, and I still could not make heads or tails of what was going on. So I just kind of gave up at that point.
Yeah. You know what? So, maybe, I mean, I'd love to say, because yes, we might be a bit, we're big, huge fans of Blumhouse. And I'm like always a big fan of them. So, I mean, maybe this is just me wanting us to be something it's not, but, like, I mean, maybe that was its intention all along, so you just kind of got caught up and swirled around in your own little fantasy kind of thing while watching this, kind of like not really supposed to ever understand what's going on. I don't know. I think that's something I believe there's a commentary track on the Blu-ray. If there is, I think maybe that I kind of want to watch that and find out. But, and from what I understand, like, I think you told me that's right. It did really well box office wise. Surprisingly, I mean, especially when it was like just snuck in before all the mayhem ensued here with
and I don't know how much of that you can blame on people just trying to get a last movie in before quarantine shut everything down. But this one I had read, and I haven't gone and looked at the numbers, so somebody may want to double check me, but I had read that this actually did fairly well at the box office, enough so that it wasn't a flop by any means. It at least made its money back.
Think of that. Blumhouse had a big twofer there. I mean, if you think of like that little back-to-back kind of thing with that and Invisible Man, so there's a lot of I mean, so they had a good little thing going there for winter horror, I guess. But
yeah, so yeah, I will. Like I said before, I don't want to say that this is I don't want to come down as hard on it as I've seen some critics come down on it. Despite my problems with it, I did enjoy the premise of it, and I enjoyed the performances in it because it has some good actors and stuff in it, and I in some respects enjoyed parts of it. So it's definitely not an 8% movie for me at all.
Oh no,
I would give it maybe like you said, Brian, like maybe like in the low 50s or high 40s maybe. But
yeah, because I think to me, I look at it as like if I watch a movie and at least I enjoy watching it, I mean, to me that it starts at 50% and goes from there.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, yeah, I'd probably put it between 56 and 65, just because of that. Like I said, I think there were just too many plot twists to. And then again, maybe, I don't know. I think it's a movie that I like. I'm wondering if you watch it a second time, if now that you know kind of what's going on, you may be able to appreciate some more things. So I mean, I bought the movie, so I'll be able to watch it again.
I think I'm gonna try to watch it. Maybe down. Not. I just don't have the energy to watch it soon, but at some point down the road, I think I may just have to go revisit it and try to kind of wrap my brain around it, because I have the feeling I have the feeling it's not as bad as I'm thinking. And I have heard people that really enjoyed it. And I don't want my reasoning for not liking the movie to be because I missed something and I didn't understand it.
Right.
Unless it was indeed the movie's fault for that happening to me. So I kind of want to give it a second shot to win me back.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So and I will say, like, if you want to look at a positive towards it, I don't think there was one bad performance in it by anybody. I think the entire cast was really good. And, I mean, when you think of, like, Michael Pena had a really big task. I mean, he's going up against Ricardo Montalban, who, and he has, and so everyone knows that Fantasy Island's Mr. Rourke, and then, like, so the fact that he had to, like, you're gonna obviously compare to that, but obviously he was a completely different style, Mr. Rourke, and and I just thought of something, but I can't really. It's funny. I'll have to tell you off air, and I know that's not fair to the listeners, but there's something there was another point I want to make, but it's too much of a spoiler to mention, so I'm gonna ask Tim off the air what he thinks about it, and then maybe in a couple of weeks we'll revisit it. Because there is something else. I remember the one thing that kind of that I think that kind of stuck with me is like that, like, I wouldn't say irk is the right word, but I thought could have been left out. But we'll address that later. But yeah. So Michael Pena was great. I mean, Maggie Q was phenomenal. I thought Michael. Yeah,
she's always good. Yeah,
we did, and Lucy Hale, I think, just is incredible with whatever she does. And I mean, literally the cast was good. There was not one bad member of that.
Well,
cast.
Also, it's got that Blumhouse sheen to it, where, I mean, it's obviously higher budget and it's slick, and you could tell, like, there's money behind it. I mean, so, like, from a movie, just like a movie going perspective, it's got all the trappings of, like, a higher budget horror movie.
Yeah.
So that piece alone kind of makes it more appealing in terms of, kind of glosses over some of its flaws. Because there's so much eye candy to look at. I don't mean the I'm not talking just about the supermodels walking around the bikinis, Brian. I'm talking about, like, the jet skis in the pool and the sets pieces and the craziness that's going on. I mean, that stuff is at least at some point entertaining to watch.
Oh yeah, like, I bet you they spent more money on this movie than the entire series run of the TV
Probably,
show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in that respect, I have to give it a little bit of credit. So I don't know, you guys, I would be very interested from our listeners to check this one out and let us know what you thought of it. It's one of those that I could see being a very polarizing movie. I think most people, particularly critics, of course, but I think most people kind of trashed it. But I'm curious to see, now that it's out on rental for streaming, what the general consensus is.
Yeah. Now that
people have had kind of a chance to see it in the comfort of their own homes.
Yeah. And I will say one final thing on just that kind of viewpoint of it. Anytime you remake a beloved property, there's always going to be two camps instantly. So it already has those challenges. So I think the best way to approach those things is to look at it upon its own thing, its own thing. Yes, I mean, I know it was, the basic premise is exactly like the TV show, but this is there's a lot of plot points that could never have been in the TV show. There's cell phones, there's mention of Instagram and Yelp reviews and stuff like that I'm glad that they made put that in there, but then again, it takes some away that innocence that they didn't have that kind of stuff back in the 70s and early 80s. So there's elements there that are automatically going, I think, to cause a divisiveness, but you have to try and keep it. It's hard to do sometimes, but I think that's automatically has its challenges to beat. But you know what? I still will say, it's like I definitely think that there's way worse things to do in just under 2 hours. So definitely give this one a look.
yeah, and we'll go through some of the trivia here. I only listed 4 trivia points. I took one of them out, Brian, because it was just a little bit too spoilery.
Yeah, I had a feeling that one was.
So the first one here is Jason Blum wanted Nicolas Cage to play Mr. Rourke, but Cage passed on the role. I think this is probably a trivia point in every movie.
I really think so. I think we've seen it in everyone. I stopped putting them in. Yeah, like I literally think you could see anything. Like I swear to God, I even think I saw this in Frozen 2. They said they wanted to replace Kristoff. Originally was going to be played by Nicolas Cage, but they took him out, and that's what. I mean,
if this is true, Nicolas Cage's agent is the busiest man in Hollywood.
Yes, he must just have like an automatic. Sorry, we need to pass button on his computer there.
I'll let you take the next one, Brian.
Yeah. So this is the second movie of 2020, actually, to have both Jimmy O. Yang and Ryan Hansen after Like a Boss. Of course, I almost forgot about that. And then, and it says in both movies they had a partnership. They played brothers in this movie and business partners in Like a Boss. So
good comedy duo.
I know. Look, they're going to be a buddy cop movie next. I think that's what's coming next for them.
Next up here, both Michael Pena and Michael Rooker have both played roles in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Pena in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Rooker, of course, in Guardians of the Galaxy and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which he stole every scene he was in those movies. So, yeah.
And by the way, Civil Gore listeners, I would kind of maybe jot that down in the back of your memory, because you never know when I could use that exact stat in a future triple threat, because right. I seem to go there a lot with the Marvel Universe points. And the last line, the last line of the film, I guess this is not that much of a spoiler.
Not much of a spoiler.
Yeah, the last line of the film, "Welcome to Fantasy Island," is the first line generally heard in Fantasy Island 1977 TV show when Mr. Rourke welcomes guests.
Yeah. All right, so Brian, I had to laugh when I saw the beer pairing.
I mean, come on.
Because why not? Why not?
And why Tim is laughing is because the beer is called Fantasy Island. And it's by Mother Earth Brewing Company out of Vista, California. 6%. Yep. So that's not too bad. It almost matches. It's just under the Rotten Tomatoes review.
It does not match.
How often do we get that where the beer is just so close to the actual Rotten Tomatoes review?
Oh, that's bad.
I mean,
I will have to say, though, it doesn't sound like a Fantasy Island beer.
No, it doesn't, but we'll read it to you anyway. So it says, it's using an award-winning recipe as the base for this popular annual release. We use real dried and shaved coconuts. Well, that part maybe.
That part does. Okay.
Yeah, to impart an amazingly balanced flavor layered on top of a biscuit. Top of biscuit, caramel, and toffee notes from the malts. And it's a brown ale. Which that's a lot of extra for a brown ale. Usually brown ales are just but I try
the coconut, caramel, and toffee sounds good, but it's kind of weird putting that on top of a biscuit.
Yeah, not sure what that is. It's like, I mean, it must mean it's like a big heavy flavor to it.
Yeah, a yeasty flavor.
Yeah.
All right, so we got our triple threat for this week. This was our softball that we gave you guys, and we got some good answers. Yeah, got some good answers. So we threw this one right over the plate, and you guys responded by hitting a home run. So good job on that. We were looking for a movie, and the answer was Candyman. Clue number 1: My film's protagonist was a combination of elements from 2 real urban legends. Candyman combines elements of 2 real urban legends: Bloody Mary, a ghost who appears by chanting her name in a mirror, and The Hook, a killer with a hook for a hand who attacks a couple in a parked car, which also, incidentally, was where the fisherman guy from I Know What You Did Last Summer took from that same urban legend that we talked about last week. Clue number 2: one important piece of the antagonist costume. You got to get those literary terms right, guys. So if your future triple threats, you need to go figure out the protagonist and antagonist and drag up all your high school English memories.
Yes, and I'm not going to lie. I will be honest with you all. I have reversed those incorrectly many a time.
We both have, yeah.
Yeah.
One important piece of the antagonist costume was difficult to get due to a hesitant blacksmith. The effects crew had a blacksmith make Candyman's hook, but when they went to pick it up, the blacksmith refused to sell it to them. Once he'd heard it was for a Clive Barker horror movie, the devout Christian blacksmith had misgivings about the project.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's kind of funny. I like that. Like, it's kind of a funny little, like, trivia piece there.
And clue number 3, there were insects bred especially for this film. The bees were bred specifically for this movie. They needed to make sure that the bees were only 12 hours old, so they looked like mature bees, but their stinger wouldn't be powerful enough to do any real damage.
Yeah, and there was an interesting trivia piece that I almost put in there, but I thought it would be too much of a giveaway. Basically, I think it was like in his contract, Tony Todd had something like if every bee sting he would get a $1,000 bonus, and I think over the course of the movies, I think all of them, he ended up being stung 23 times. So he made $23,000 just by getting stung or something like that. So that's kind of crazy.
All right, so this week we are looking for an actress. And Brian, I will have to say, I think this is one of your most finely crafted triple threats.
I thought so,
to
actually.
date.
Thank you.
I think this is just a great, it's not too hard. It's not too easy. It's like the perfect down the middle, moderate challenge triple threat, and it's just very well constructed. So well done, sir. All right, so here we go. We're looking for an actress. Clue number 1. While I have no official medical training of note, I have played characters in the medical field well over 10 times. Clue number 2. While not huge in the horror world, I did have a role in a major horror franchise. And clue number 3, I am starring in an upcoming remake of a very popular 1990s film produced by Jim Henson's production company.
Yeah, so now I will say, Tim, on this one, I appreciate all your sentiments too. And what I think why you might feel that way too is I think there's not one question that, how we usually say, well, that's the one to focus on, really. I think they're all equally a clue. It's like you really need to piece all 3 of these pieces together because it could be a lot of different people.
Yeah. That's what I mean by it being well constructed. Like every clue has value.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good. All right, Brian. So it's time for our Zabmondo question of the week. And guys, we talked about some ideas for replacing this, and we thought maybe, and I don't know how you guys feel about it, is to do a listener question each week. And this could be anything. It doesn't have to be like a personal question, although it can be. But it could be anything to spark discussion that you guys want to send in. We just need one question a week. So if anybody could send some in, we could have kind of a backlog of them that we could start picking and choosing from. So if you guys have any questions that you want us to hear discussed as the last part of the episode, I don't know, we don't have a name for the segment yet. Just something, it could be something silly like, some of our made-up horrors of Mondos we did a while back on Twitter, or it could be something, about our personal life, or it could be something about even off topic. It doesn't matter. It definitely could be off topic. So send those questions in, and we may use them on an upcoming end segment for the podcast.
So Tim, I'm going to give you a choice on these 2 Zabmondos. I have 2.
Okay.
One is a standard Zabmondo, and one is a food one again. So I'm thinking based on how your stomach is this weekend, which would you rather?
Let's just
today?
go for the food one. Let's just do the food one.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go right for it.
All right, here we go.
I'm feeling froggy tonight.
Funny you say that. So here's the question.
Oh, God.
That was way too timed well. Okay. Would you rather eat a handful of chicken feathers or 5 tablespoons of frog eggs? I can't believe you said froggy, and then it was literally had frog eggs in the question. Wow.
All right, let me think about this. I think we'd eat the frog eggs.
I didn't even know what were frog eggs anyway. I don't think I know what those are. It's
just like little tadpole eggs, but
is that like caviar almost size? Like, would it be like that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a no-brainer to me. Oh my God.
Because you could just swallow those right down with a glass of water. I mean, they'd just slide right down your throat. But I can't imagine trying to eat feathers. They would just get caught in your throat.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would eat feathers.
Yeah, I mean Oh no, I would totally do the frog eggs. I mean, and I mean, they're not that bad. It's not like you're gonna croak from them, but can you imagine eating a handful of chicken feathers? Oh, forget it.
No,
I found once like a little like every once in a while you'll find like a little hint of a feather in like a fresh chicken like that. Like that freaks me out. So I can't imagine eating a handful of it.
Yeah, and you imagine like if you put a cotton ball in your mouth, that texture, what that would feel like to put chicken feathers in your mouth.
Yeah, no.
Plus, to me, feathers are dirty. Like a frog egg. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't feel quite as unsanitary. I mean, I know it's coming out of a frog, but it's water, it's in water already.
Yeah,
so.
but yeah, and I'm assuming like I'm just gonna go with that fact. It could be if we have any like frog egg experts out there or egg experts out there, let me know because I'm going with the thing that with what Tim and I just said that it's gonna be similar to caviar, and I could eat 5 spoons of caviar without a blink. So
it might be a little bigger than caviar. I've seen
I've
eggs
seen
in a
those
pool.
big ones. You know those big salmon roes that you can get at like the sushi restaurants? Like that size I eat too. So I don't know.
Okay, well you wouldn't have a problem because I've seen frog eggs. The only time I've seen frog eggs is in a swimming pool because sometimes I'll lay them in the swimming pool. And I've seen that before. And I kind of remember them being a little bit larger than like you would think of a fish egg. But I don't know. I still think you just swallow those things down with a glass of water.
Yeah, I would eat. Well, especially because with 5, think about it. Because they'll slide, so you can just go 5 times right in a row, and they're done down your throat. You wouldn't even have to realize them. But like with that feathers, you'd be dealing with that for like hours. I think a handful of feathers. Yeah.
Ugh, no.
All right. Well, I'll give you the quick little stats here that they give you. The little like trivia. It says Olympic badminton rules say that the birdie has to have exactly 14 feathers on it. That's something I did not know.
I used to play a lot of badminton in high school because, this is kind of funny. We always get off topic with these, but that's okay. So, I hated PE. That was my worst class because I'm a geek, I'm a dork, and I don't like PE. Now, I like running and stuff nowadays, but back then, God, you wouldn't catch me running for nothing. So, I would always take like the least stressful PE class I could, and in high school they offered one called Lifetime Sports, which was essentially like PE for kids who can't do PE or that are not athletic enough to do actual PE. So the sports in Lifetime Sports were ping pong and badminton. That's what I played all the time was ping pong and badminton in high school PE class.
Do you know I had a friend who broke his leg playing ping pong? And because the table collapsed on it mid game.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a doozy. I never quite ever thought I would see that, but it was. And he wasn't really the most athletic person to begin with, so the fact that he managed to sustain such an injury in a sport,
that's great.
Ping pong. But anyway, so now. Well, I'll go to this one first. It says the longest recorded flight of a chicken is 13 seconds. So obviously because they're not really, they're not really flyers. But I'm wondering though, what happens if someone took a chicken on board a plane? Now wouldn't that be technically a recorded flight?
Yeah,
of a chicken?
True. I think
I don't know.
You have to caveat that with self-powered flight.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put an asterisk on that one too.
We used to know. I don't know how these things are sparking, but I used to know of a chicken that used to fly up in a tree that this person owned, and you would see this chicken like randomly up in this tree, and it always freaked me out because you just don't think of that happening, but they do get in trees.
Yeah, well, it must not have been 13 feet. That's all, or 13 seconds. It would have taken. He must just get up there quick. That's all.
Yeah, I mean they can't get in high trees; they get in short trees.
So now this may change. This may make our confidence level of our choice a little bit. Lesson here. It says the female Australian brooding frog lays eggs so that the male can fertilize them. She then eats the fertilized eggs and gives birth to little froglets by vomiting them up 5 weeks later.
Ugh. Okay.
I still think I'd go with the frog eggs because
I'm still going frog eggs.
I guess once they're in your stomach, they're safe from being fertilized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you learn everything at Civil Gore. You learn about horror movies. You learn.
Show.
Yeah, you learn about frog eggs and reproductive habits of the frog.
And how chickens fly. So.
Yeah, and the Tim knew one.
Yeah. All right, guys. So next week we are going to be doing a Brain Scan from 1994, and we will have a special surprise with that episode, so don't miss it. I'm not going to give it away yet.
Yeah, no, sorry. Just be very, very timely, because if you know what movie Brain Scan is about and what kind of, like, the element of that movie, you'll see where we might be going with it, but it's definitely a really cool. I mean, I wouldn't say definitely not horror related guest per se.
No,
definitely more of our other fandoms.
Very, very entertaining guest.
Yes,
And,
it was
also,
a great interview.
Remember to send in your listener questions for our final segment. So anything's on the board, off topic, personal.
Yes.
Horror related, whatever you guys just want me and Brian to talk about, we will be happy to discuss.
Yes,
So-
and by the way, I know obviously what's COVID is still around, guys. So and you want to keep not only yourself safe but others safe. And so I know I had shown you about the we actually have a Civil Gore face covering that we offer, and mine came, and I've been wearing it, and I have to say, it's obviously it's not the protective layer, it's not an N95, it's just the standard face coverings to prevent you from possibly spreading it to elsewhere. But I got to tell you, it's very comfortable, very breathable through there. It's nice and soft, and it's actually just a really comfortable face covering. I know some people just are not fans of those things, and I have several different types that I'll rotate through, but that's actually my favorite right now. I just got my Shining one, but I have to wash it because I literally wash anything that's gonna come that I could possibly breathe in because my allergies are so bad. So I always make sure I try and like any kind of new clothing that's gonna be like especially like a shirt or something that I could possibly get stuck in my
especially
nose.
one in your Well, plus it comes from the Overlook Hotel, so you don't know where those
Right.
carpets have been. So.
Right, we don't know where that is. So, but I'm definitely I'll start posting on Instagram some pictures of with the masks. But yeah, so check that out on our store if you're looking to just have a fun, little novelty mask to protect your friends and family.
I actually need a mask because I lost mine in the move, and so I only have a cheap paper one right now that the hospital gave me. So
well, you ordered one, right? You ordered a Civil Gore.
Yeah, so I ordered.
Right?
It just shipped. So my Civil Gore
great.
one just shipped. So it should be here soon. It should be here this week.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you'll get it in a couple days then. And they actually came out really good. And I have to say, some of our merch, real quick before we send you off here, the merchandise from our store, actually, I have to say, I ordered a bunch of stuff for myself. And we know we showed you the great hoodie that Tim, you bought for Anna. And
awesome.
that one came out great. Cody bought some great stuff, I know. Of course, the shower curtain. I picked up some stuff. Like I picked up the latte mug, the regular 15-ounce, the black mug that we have. Oh my God, this thing is great! It came out so good. Threadless does just an amazing job on the product.
Yeah,
and
I got my latte mug in, Brian. And,
you did? Okay.
And I really liked
good.
it too. So I think everything I've ordered from them so far has turned out really great.
Yeah, they do. They really do a good job. And another thing we got actually, which was funny, I bought this, and Julie was saying like, she was kind of like thinking that it wasn't going to come out because she does a lot of promotion for her job where she has to buy branded items, and she was assuming that it was gonna just come out okay. And it was the tote bag I got, and she was so impressed because I got the tote bag literally has our logo on it on both sides, and it's a quality like that canvasy type of tote bag. So it's a really strong tote bag, and it's got a lot of space in it. I think we have 3 sizes we offer, so that one's really good too. And I also ordered, we got a magnet. The Civil Gore magnet that goes on our fridge is really nicely done. I tell you, I could not be more pleased with Threadless and their customer service is great, by the way. If you have any questions, they have a little IM thing you can get them on. But yeah, so go definitely if you guys want to order some merch. Now that I feel much more comfortable really promoting it now that I've gotten some of our stuff myself.
Yeah. And we don't say that just to try to make, because we don't make a lot of money off these.
No, it's not even. It's a minor thing. It's more for just if you like our show and you'd like to help promote it. I mean, it's and it's actually good quality stuff.
yeah, that's why that was the same way. I was like, I'm not trying to promote it to make a ton of money or anything, because we only make a tiny margin off of it, but just to tell you guys that the quality of the stuff is really good, so you can order it and not be afraid of it turning out kind of crappy. Though me and Brian have ordered enough stuff now that everything I've gotten from them has been really, really nice.
Yeah. So I'm really glad. I have to. Yeah. So any other podcasters out there for trying to do some merch, and I know that's who Kim and Ket used too. They were actually a big help in swaying us over to them, because when we were looking early on, we were trying to figure it out, and I asked them. I saw that they were on threadless too, and they said they really liked it. So that's why we went with them, and we've been perfectly satisfied so far, I'd say.
All right, guys. So we will see you back here next week for Brain Scan. And remember, if you get on a plane to Fantasy Island, you may just want to stay on the plane and go back home.
Deplane. Sorry, I had to do a classic tattoo,
Yeah, you have to.
from the original.
Later, guys.